A nurse on vacation rushed to help a man in a wheelchair, thinking it was just a moment of kindness. She had no clue he was a billionaire on the edge of giving up on love until she changed everything. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Maya Jenkins pressed her forehead against the cool glass of her oceanfront room, watching raindrops race down the window. This was not how her first vacation in 3 years was supposed to go. The weather forecast had promised sunshine and gentle breezes along California's stunning coastline. Instead, a rare May storm system had parked itself over the picturesque town of Seacliff, bringing 3 straight days of relentless rain. "So much for beach yoga and seaside hikes," she muttered, pushing herself away from the window. Maya checked her phone. No new messages. Her friends back at Chicago Memorial Hospital were too busy saving lives to check in, and she couldn't blame them. The emergency department never slowed down, especially not for something as trivial as wondering how a colleague's vacation was going. She'd been one of them until 5 days ago, working herself to exhaustion, postponing personal time, and convincing herself that the hospital would fall apart without her. It took a minor fainting spell during a 12-hour shift for her supervisor to insist she take her accumulated vacation time. "You're burning out, Maya," Dr. Harrison had said, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "You can't help anyone if you don't take care of yourself first." Now, trapped in her hotel room by the downpour, Maya was beginning to think she should have just stayed at work. At least there she felt useful. She grabbed her raincoat from the hook by the door. Staying cooped up for another minute would drive her mad. The elegant lobby of the Seacliff Hotel was quiet when she stepped off the elevator. A few travelers huddled around the grand fireplace, nursing hot drinks and looking as disappointed as she felt about the weather. "Heading out, Miss Jenkins?" The concierge, Walter, according to his name tag, looked up from his computer. "Just for a walk. I need some fresh air." "The rain's lightened up a bit, but you might want to stick to the covered boardwalk. The cafe at the end does a wonderful clam chowder." Maya thanked him and stepped outside, pulling her hood up against the drizzle. The air smelled of salt and wet earth. The boardwalk stretched ahead, running parallel to the beach where gray waves crashed against the shore. She walked slowly, hands stuffed in her pockets, trying to appreciate the moody beauty of the coastline. The storm brought its own kind of majesty, wild and untamed compared to the picture-perfect postcard scenes she'd imagined. After about 15 minutes, the wooden walkway opened onto a wider deck area. The cafe Walter had mentioned sat at the far end, its windows glowing with warm light. As Maya approached, she noticed a man in a wheelchair positioned near the railing, facing the ocean. Something about his stillness caught her attention. He sat unmoving, seemingly unconcerned about the light rain falling on him. No umbrella, no raincoat, just a thin sweater that was visibly dampening in the persistent drizzle. Her nurse's instincts kicked in. Was he okay? Had he been abandoned there? Was he having some kind of medical episode? Maya approached cautiously. "Excuse me," she called over the sound of the waves. "Are you all right?" The man didn't respond, continuing to stare out at the turbulent sea. She moved closer, coming around to see his face. He was in his early 40s, she guessed, with sharp features and dark hair touched with silver at the temples. Deep lines etched his forehead and the corners of his eyes, whether from pain or worry, she couldn't tell. He was handsome in a severe, weathered way, like someone who'd forgotten how to smile. "Sir, are you okay?" She tried again, louder this time. His eyes snapped to her, startlingly blue against his tanned skin. For a moment, he looked confused, as if he'd been pulled from deep thoughts, or perhaps he wasn't used to being addressed by strangers. "I'm fine," he said shortly, his voice rough as if from disuse. "Thank you." Maya should have nodded and walked away. The man had answered her. He wasn't in distress. But something kept her rooted to the spot. Perhaps it was the nurse in her that noticed how his hands trembled slightly on the armrests of his wheelchair, or how his lips had taken on a faint bluish tinge from the cold. "You're getting soaked," she pointed out. "The cafe is just over there. Wouldn't you rather wait out the rain inside?" His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her shift uncomfortably. "I prefer the view from here." Maya glanced at the churning ocean, then back at him. "It is beautiful, in a tempestuous sort of way." She paused. "But you're shivering." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, as if he hadn't noticed his body's reaction to the cold. He looked down at his trembling hands and frowned. "I could get you a hot drink," Maya offered. "I'm heading to the cafe anyway." "Why?" The question came abruptly. "Why? Am I going to the cafe? Why would you help a stranger?" His tone wasn't accusatory, just genuinely puzzled. The question took Maya aback. "It's just a cup of coffee," she said with a small shrug. "And you look cold." He seemed to consider this, his gaze returning to the ocean. After a long moment, he nodded once. "Black coffee, thank you." Maya hurried to the cafe, grateful to step into its warmth. She ordered 2 coffees and, on impulse, a bowl of the clam chowder Walter had recommended. By the time she returned, balancing everything on a small tray, the rain had picked up again. The man hadn't moved. Water dripped from his hair onto his shoulders, but he seemed oblivious to his increasing discomfort. "Here," Maya said, holding out a steaming cup. "Careful, it's hot." He accepted it with a small nod of thanks. Up close, Maya noticed that his wheelchair was no standard hospital issue. It was sleek, obviously custom-made, with what looked like hand controls tailored specifically for someone with limited mobility in their lower body. "I got some chowder too," she said, gesturing to the tray she'd set on a nearby bench. "The concierge at my hotel raved about it." "You're staying at the Seacliff?" he asked, taking a sip of the coffee. Maya nodded. "For another 4 days. Though if the weather stays like this, I might go home early." "The forecast says it will clear tomorrow," he offered, surprising her with the continuation of conversation. "Seacliff often has dramatic weather changes. By noon you could be looking at blue skies. That would be a welcome change." Maya hesitated, then held out her hand. "I'm Maya, by the way. Maya Jenkins." He looked at her hand for a moment before taking it in a brief, firm grip. "Ethan. Ethan Harrington. Nice to meet you, Ethan. Are you from around here?" "I have a house on the cliffs." He gestured vaguely northward. "About a mile up the coast." Maya's eyebrows rose. "Must be a beautiful view." "It is." He took another sip of coffee, and Maya noticed some color returning to his lips. "What brings you to Seacliff, Maya Jenkins? Not exactly prime vacation weather." "It was supposed to be," she said wryly. "Perfect timing on my part." "Vacation?" "First one in 3 years. Forced vacation, actually. I'm a nurse at Chicago Memorial. My supervisor thought I was working too much." Something in Ethan's expression shifted. "Emergency department?" Maya nodded, surprised. "How did you know?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You have the look. Alert, quick to react, constantly assessing. My sister was an ER nurse." "Was?" "She switched to pediatric oncology 5 years ago. Says emergency medicine was aging her prematurely." Maya laughed. "She might be onto something. My friend Lily swears I've gotten new wrinkles since last year." Ethan studied her face with unexpected intensity. "I don't see any wrinkles." The comment, delivered so matter-of-factly, brought heat to Maya's cheeks. To cover her sudden embarrassment, she reached for the chowder. "You should try this before it gets cold." To her surprise, Ethan accepted the bowl and spoon she offered. As they sat in companionable silence, the rain began to ease, and patches of lighter gray appeared in the sky. "Maybe you were right about the weather changing," Maya observed. Ethan nodded, finishing the last of the chowder. "Seacliff doesn't do anything halfway, including storms." He checked his watch. I should be getting back." "Oh," Maya said, feeling a strange disappointment. "Do you need any help?" For the first time, a full smile transformed Ethan's face, softening the harsh lines and revealing a dimple in his right cheek. "I manage fine, but thank you." He placed the empty bowl on the tray and positioned his hands on the wheelchair controls. "It was nice meeting you, Ethan," Maya said. "Enjoy the improving weather." "You as well, Maya Jenkins." He paused, seeming to wrestle with something. "I have a tour boat that takes visitors along the coastline. If you're interested, it's going out tomorrow at 10. Ask for the Sea Whisper at the marina. The coffee would be my treat this time." Before Maya could respond, he expertly maneuvered his wheelchair and headed down the boardwalk. She watched him go, his straight-backed posture and confident movements at odds with the lost man she'd first observed staring out at the storm. Back in her hotel room, Maya found herself looking up Sea Whisper Sea Cliff on her phone. The tour boat was real, with excellent reviews that mentioned stunning views of the coastline and occasional dolphin sightings. Several comments specifically praised the knowledgeable crew. Nothing mentioned the owner being a man in a wheelchair named Ethan Harrington. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the booking button. It was just a boat tour, she told herself. A way to see the sights before she returned to Chicago and the endless cycles of the emergency room. But something told her that Ethan Harrington's invitation might lead to more than just scenic views. And for the first time since arriving in Seacliff, Maya found herself looking forward to tomorrow. True to Ethan's prediction, the next morning dawned gloriously clear. Maya woke to golden sunlight streaming through her hotel room window. She stood on her small balcony, breathing in the salt-tinged air as she watched seagulls wheel above the now calm ocean. The stormy gray of yesterday had transformed into a vivid blue that seemed to stretch forever. After a quick breakfast in the hotel restaurant, Maya found herself walking toward the marina, her steps hesitant. Several times, she nearly turned back. What was she doing? Going on a boat tour with a man she'd met for all of 15 minutes? A stranger who'd shared coffee and chowder with her in the rain? Yet something about Ethan Harrington intrigued her. The way he'd seemed so alone, staring out at the turbulent sea. The flicker of surprise when she'd offered him simple kindness. The unexpected invitation delivered with that brief, transformative smile. The marina bustled with activity. Fishing boats were returning with early morning catches, while pleasure craft prepared to head out for the day. Maya approached a weathered booth with Harbor Tours painted on its awning. "Excuse me," she said to the sunburned man inside. "I'm looking for the Sea Whisper." The man's bushy eyebrows rose. "You Maya Jenkins?" Surprised, she nodded. "Dock 7, he said, pointing. "They're expecting you." They? Maya followed his directions, passing rows of gleaming boats until she reached Dock 7. The Sea Whisper was not the small tour boat she had imagined. Instead, a sleek yacht, at least 60 feet long, gleamed in the morning sun. Its polished wood and chrome fittings spoke of luxury beyond anything Maya had anticipated. A young woman in crisp white shorts and a navy polo shirt emblazoned with Sea Whisper stood at the gangway. "Miss Jenkins?" she called, spotting Maya's hesitation. "Welcome aboard. I'm Sophie, the first mate. Mr. Harrington is waiting for you on the upper deck." Maya stepped onto the gangway, suddenly self-conscious in her simple sundress and sandals. "I thought this was a tour boat," she said, her voice low. Sophie smiled. "It is, just a private one. Mr. Harrington doesn't do group tours anymore. This way, please." She led Maya up a curved staircase to an expansive deck furnished with comfortable seating and a small bar. Ethan sat by the railing, his wheelchair locked into place with some sort of mechanism built into the deck. He wore khaki pants and a light blue button-down that matched his eyes, looking far more put together than the rain-soaked man from yesterday. "You came," he said, and though his expression remained controlled, Maya thought she detected genuine pleasure in his voice. "I'm surprised you found space for me on such short notice," she replied, gesturing to the empty deck. Where are the other tourists? That hint of a smile played at his lips again. Today, it's just you. I can't afford a private yacht tour, Maya blurted, embarrassment heating her cheeks. I invited you as a thank you for the coffee and chowder. A rather extravagant thank you, don't you think? Ethan seemed to consider this. Perhaps. But the Sea Whisper was going out today anyway. He gestured toward the open ocean. Would you rather see the Sea Cliff coastline from here or from your hotel balcony? Put that way, the choice seemed obvious. Maya relaxed slightly, taking the seat across from him. I do appreciate the invitation. Sophie appeared with a tray of coffee and pastries. We'll be casting off in 5 minutes, Mr. Harrington. Captain Louis says the conditions are perfect today. Thank you, Sophie. As the yacht's engines hummed to life, Maya cradled her coffee cup. So, is giving private tours your hobby or your business? Neither, really. The Sea Whisper is my personal yacht. We occasionally do environmental surveys and research trips for the Harrington Marine Conservation Foundation, but mostly she's for pleasure. Maya nearly choked on her coffee. The Harrington Marine Conservation Foundation was one of the largest environmental organizations on the West Coast. She'd seen their logo on television specials about ocean preservation. You own the foundation too? She asked, trying to keep her voice casual. I started it 8 years ago. Ethan's gaze shifted to the shoreline as the yacht began to move away from the dock. It focuses on protecting marine ecosystems and developing sustainable fishing practices. Maya studied him with new eyes. Yesterday's rain-drenched man in the simple sweater had given no indication that he was some kind of wealthy philanthropist. That's impressive work. Ethan shrugged, seeming uncomfortable with the praise. It's necessary work. The oceans are dying. He gestured toward the bow of the yacht. Come, the view is better from the front as we head up the coast. Maya followed as Ethan expertly navigated his wheelchair along a track that seemed built into the deck specifically for this purpose. At the bow, the breeze was stronger, carrying the fresh scent of the open sea. There, Ethan pointed to the cliffs rising dramatically from the water's edge. That's Sea Cliff Point. And just beyond is my house. Maya gasped involuntarily. What Ethan had modestly called his house was actually a stunning modern structure of glass and wood that seemed to grow organically from the cliffside. Multiple terraces cascaded down toward the ocean, and a private dock extended from a cove below. That's your house? She asked, unable to keep the awe from her voice. Home for the last 12 years. Something in his tone shifted, a subtle darkening that matched the sudden shadow in his eyes. Though these days I sometimes think it's more mausoleum than home. Before Maya could respond to this odd statement, Sophie approached with a pair of binoculars. Dolphins off the starboard side, Mr. Harrington. Ethan seemed to shake off whatever dark thoughts had momentarily claimed him. Take a look, he said, handing Maya the binoculars. Pacific white-sided dolphins. They often feed in these waters. For the next hour, the Sea Whisper cruised lazily up the coast. Ethan proved to be a knowledgeable guide, pointing out landmarks and sharing information about the marine life they spotted. Maya found herself relaxing in his company, drawn to his evident passion for the ocean and its inhabitants. When they anchored in a secluded cove for lunch, Sophie served an elegant meal of fresh seafood and local produce on the main deck. Maya couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten something so delicious that wasn't hospital cafeteria food or takeout gobbled between shifts. So, Ethan said as they finished their meal, emergency nursing in Chicago. How did you end up there? Maya dabbed her lips with a linen napkin. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. Chicago was the big city, you know. I did my nursing degree at Northwestern and just stayed. Do you enjoy it? The emergency department? Most days, Maya replied honestly. It's challenging and unpredictable, but that's part of what I love about it. Every shift is different. And there's something incredibly rewarding about being there for people on what might be the worst day of their lives. Ethan's gaze intensified. You're good at that, being there for people on their worst days. The comment caught Maya off guard. You've only known me for a day. You stopped for a stranger in the rain, he pointed out. Most people wouldn't have. Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with his assessment. It was just coffee. It was kindness, Ethan countered, something increasingly rare. An awkward silence fell between them, broken when Sophie approached to clear their plates. Captain Luis suggests we start heading back if we want to catch the sunset over Seacliff Point, sir. Thank you, Sophie. Ethan turned to Maya. The sunset view from the water is quite spectacular. Would you like to stay aboard until then? Maya checked her watch. It was only 2 in the afternoon. That would be several more hours. We can drop you at the marina now if you prefer, he offered, his tone carefully neutral. I'm sure you have other plans for your vacation. The truth was, Maya had no plans at all. Her hastily booked vacation had been about escape rather than exploration, getting away from the relentless pace of the emergency room, not actually doing anything. Beyond a vague notion of beach walking and reading the novel that had sat untouched on her nightstand for months, she had nothing scheduled. No other plans, she admitted, and I'd love to see the sunset from the water. Relief flickered across Ethan's face, gone so quickly Maya thought she might have imagined it. Excellent. In the meantime, we could tour the rest of the coastline. There's a sea cave just around the next headland that's particularly impressive. As the yacht cruised back towards Seacliff, Maya found herself stealing glances at her host. Ethan Harrington was a puzzle, a wealthy, obviously successful man who had nonetheless seemed so isolated yesterday, sitting alone in the rain. There was a story there, she was certain, but something in his carefully maintained composure warned her not to pry. Instead, she asked about his foundation's work, and Ethan visibly relaxed as he described their recent projects. His hands moved expressively as he spoke about restoration efforts for kelp forests and campaigns to reduce plastic waste. The passion that animated him transformed his entire demeanor, erasing the austere lines of his face and replacing them with genuine enthusiasm. By the time the sun began its descent toward the horizon, bathing everything in a warm, golden glow, Maya realized she'd spent an entire day in the company of this enigmatic man and still knew almost nothing personal about him. He deftly directed their conversation toward marine conservation, local history, or questions about her life in Chicago, skillfully sidestepping any inquiries that might reveal more about himself. As the Sea Whisper positioned itself for an optimal view of the sunset, Ethan grew quiet again, his gaze fixed on the horizon. In profile against the blazing sky, there was something almost classical about his features, like a statue weathered by time and elements but still bearing the mark of its creator's intention. "Penny for your thoughts," Maya said softly, breaking the silence between them. Ethan turned to her, his blue eyes reflecting the fiery hues of the setting sun. "I was thinking," he said with unexpected candor, "that this is the first time in a very long time that I've actually wanted company on the Sea Whisper." Before Maya could respond to this startling admission, Sophie appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "Sunset toast as usual, Mr. Harrington?" Ethan accepted the glasses, handing one to Maya. "2 unexpected encounters," he said, raising his glass. "And kindness in the rain," Maya added, touching her glass gently to his. As the sun slipped below the horizon in a final blaze of glory, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had shifted between them, and perhaps within Ethan himself. "I can't accept this," Maya said, staring at the small envelope Ethan had handed her as the Sea Whisper docked at the marina. The sunset cruise had extended into an evening of easy conversation over a simple but exquisite dinner served on deck. "It's just an invitation," Ethan replied, his expression guarded, "to a charity gala that costs $5,000 per plate." Maya waved the embossed invitation. That's more than a month's rent for my apartment." A hint of that now familiar smile played at the corner of Ethan's mouth. "As the founder, I do get a few complimentary tickets." Maya hesitated. The Harrington Marine Conservation Foundation Gala was apparently the social event of the season in Seacliff, scheduled for tomorrow evening at the historic Cliffside Hotel. The thought of attending such an upscale event made her stomach knot with anxiety. "I didn't pack anything appropriate for something like this." "There's an excellent boutique in the hotel lobby," Ethan said, as if the solution were that simple. He must have seen the hesitation in her face because he added more softly, "Please come, Maya. These events are challenging for me. Having someone there who doesn't look at me with pity or calculation would be a welcome change." It was the most personally revealing thing he'd said all day, and it caught Maya off guard. She found herself nodding before she could overthink it. "All right, but I'm buying my own dress." "As you wish." He handed her a business card. "My private number. Text me when you arrive, and I'll meet you in the lobby." Sophie appeared to help Ethan navigate the gangway, and Maya watched as his wheelchair descended via a specialized lift. On solid ground, he turned to look up at her. "Thank you for coming today." "Thank you for inviting me. It was unexpected." Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Amusement, perhaps. Life's most valuable experiences often are. With that enigmatic statement, he maneuvered his wheelchair and headed toward a sleek black Range Rover with a modified driver's compartment. The driver, a broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair, opened a specialized door and helped Ethan transfer from his wheelchair. The chair itself was expertly folded and stowed by Sophie before she closed the door and waved as the vehicle pulled away. Maya stood on the dock, the invitation still in her hand, wondering what exactly she had gotten herself into. Back in her hotel room, she poured herself a glass of wine from the minibar and called her best friend and fellow nurse, Lily. "Let me get this straight," Lily said after Maya recounted the day's events. "You met a mysterious millionaire." "Probably billionaire, actually," Maya interrupted, recalling the yacht, the cliffside house, and the foundation that bore his name. "Fine mysterious billionaire in a wheelchair who invited you on his private yacht and now wants you to attend a fancy charity gala as his... what? Date? Emotional support nurse?" "It's not like that," Maya protested, though she wasn't entirely sure what it was. "I think he's just lonely." "Honey, lonely billionaires are trouble. They get used to buying whatever they want, including people." "Ethan's not like that." Maya surprised herself with the certainty in her voice. "There's something, I don't know, genuine about him. He's guarded, yes, but not fake." Lily sighed. "Just be careful, okay? You have a savior complex the size of Lake Michigan. Not everyone needs or wants saving." "I do not have a savior complex," Maya objected. "You collect strays and lost causes like some people collect shoes. Remember that surgeon who was going through a divorce? Or the med student having a breakdown over his boards? You tried to fix them both." "That's called being a supportive friend. It's called turning yourself into an emotional support human at the expense of your own well-being." Lily's voice softened. "You're supposed to be on vacation, resting, not getting entangled with a complicated man, no matter how rich or intriguing he is." Maya glanced at the invitation on her nightstand. "It's just a gala, Lily. One evening. Then I'll finish my vacation and go back to Chicago. And that will be that." But even as she said the words, she wondered if she was trying to convince Lily or herself. The next day, Maya spent far too much time at the boutique in the Seacliff Hotel lobby. The shop assistant, a stylish woman named Vivian, helped her navigate racks of designer evening wear that made Maya's credit card wince just looking at them. "This one," Vivian said finally, holding up a midnight blue gown with a subtle shimmer. "It complements your coloring perfectly." The dress did look stunning on, though Maya blanched at the price tag. Still, she reasoned, how often did emergency room nurses get to attend galas? This was a once-in-a-lifetime splurge. After a visit to the hotel's salon for an updo that tamed her usually unruly dark curls, Maya barely recognized herself in the mirror. The woman who stared back looked elegant, polished, worlds away from the scrubs-wearing nurse who handled trauma cases with efficient competence. At precisely 7 o'clock, Maya texted Ethan that she was in the lobby. Less than 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened and he emerged. Maya's breath caught. Ethan in casual clothes had been handsome. Ethan in a perfectly tailored tuxedo was devastating. The severe cut emphasized his broad shoulders and the lean strength of his upper body. His dark hair was neatly combed and he'd shaved the slight stubble that had shadowed his jaw yesterday. He spotted her immediately, his eyes widening slightly as he took in her transformation. He navigated through the crowded lobby with practiced ease, coming to a stop directly in front of her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Heat rose to Maya's cheeks. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." A flash of genuine amusement lit his eyes. "High praise, shall we?" The ballroom was already filled with Seacliff's elite when they entered. Conversations hushed momentarily as heads turned toward them, and Maya fought the urge to shrink under the scrutiny. Ethan, however, seemed to expect it. His posture remained impeccable, his expression composed as he guided his wheelchair to a table near the front of the room. "Mr. Harrington," a silver-haired man approached, hand extended. "Wonderful event as always. And who is your lovely companion?" "Senator Collins," Ethan replied with cool politeness. "May I present Maya Jenkins? Maya, Senator Thomas Collins." "Charmed," the senator said, though his eyes barely flickered over Maya before returning to Ethan. "I've been hoping to discuss the zoning proposal for the Parker's Cove development. My office has been trying to reach you for weeks. And my office has consistently explained our foundation's position on the matter," Ethan replied, his tone cordial but firm. "If you'll excuse us, I see the governor has arrived." He smoothly maneuvered away, leaving the senator looking slightly affronted. "Sorry about that," Ethan murmured to Maya. "Politics and conservation make for uncomfortable bedfellows." "You handled it well," Maya observed. "I'm guessing this happens a lot?" "These events are as much about networking and influence as they are about fundraising," Ethan admitted. "Everyone wants something." "What does Senator Collins want?" "Development rights for a pristine section of coastline that serves as a critical habitat for several endangered species." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Our foundation has been fighting it for years." Before Maya could respond, they were approached by a striking woman in her 50s, elegant in a crimson gown. "Ethan, darling," she said, bending to kiss his cheek. "You've been avoiding my calls." "Rebecca," Ethan acknowledged with a slight nod. "May I introduce Maya Jenkins? Maya, this is Rebecca Harrington, my former mother-in-law." Maya tried to keep the surprise from her face. Mother-in-law meant Ethan had been married. Former meant… what? Divorce? Death? How unexpected, Rebecca said, eyeing Maya with open curiosity. "Ethan hasn't brought a date to one of these functions since…" "How is Alexander?" Ethan interrupted smoothly. "Still in London?" Rebecca's smile tightened. "My son is thriving, thank you. His firm just opened another office in Singapore." She turned to Maya. "And what do you do, my dear?" "I'm a nurse," Maya replied. "Emergency department at Chicago Memorial." "A nurse," Rebecca repeated, her tone making the word sound like an exotic species she'd just discovered. "How nurturing of you. Are you enjoying your time in Seacliff?" "Very much, yes. It's beautiful here." Rebecca's gaze shifted back to Ethan. "We still need to talk about the anniversary memorial, Ethan. It's in 3 weeks and you haven't responded to any of the planner's questions." Ethan's expression shuddered completely. "I'll have Caroline contact them tomorrow." "See that she does." With a final assessing look at Maya, Rebecca swept away toward a group of elegantly dressed women across the room. Ethan's knuckles had whitened where he gripped the arms of his wheelchair. Maya placed her hand gently on his. "Are you okay?" He seemed startled by the touch, looking down at their hands before carefully withdrawing his. "I'm fine. Rebecca has that effect on most people." The dinner portion of the evening began, saving Maya from having to respond. Throughout the elaborate 5-course meal, Ethan was the perfect host, introducing her to various guests and keeping the conversation flowing smoothly. But Maya noticed that a shadow had fallen over him since Rebecca's mention of the anniversary memorial, whatever that was. After dinner, Ethan was called to the podium for a speech. Maya watched as he navigated to the stage, where a specialized lift allowed his wheelchair access. The ballroom fell silent as he positioned himself behind the microphone. "7 years ago," he began, his voice strong and clear, "I founded the Harrington Marine Conservation Foundation with a simple mission: to protect our oceans for future generations. Today, that mission has expanded beyond what I could have imagined." Maya listened, captivated, as Ethan outlined the foundation's achievements and ongoing projects. He spoke with passion and authority, completely at ease in front of the hundreds of wealthy donors. This was clearly a man accustomed to leadership, to being heard and respected. "But our work is far from done," he continued. "The threats to our marine ecosystems grow more severe each year. Tonight, I'm announcing a new initiative, the Harrington Coastal Preservation Project, which will seek to protect 50 miles of California coastline from development and pollution." Applause erupted, though Maya noticed Senator Collins and several others remained stone-faced. "Your generosity tonight," Ethan concluded, "is an investment not just in our foundation, but in the future of our planet. Thank you." As he left the stage, the room rose in a standing ovation. Maya stood with them, struck by the contrast between the commanding man who had just addressed the crowd and the solitary figure she'd found staring out at the storm 2 days ago. When Ethan returned to their table, the tension in his shoulders was visible despite his composed expression. The evening continued with dancing and more mingling, but Ethan grew increasingly withdrawn as the hours passed. "Would you like to get some air?" Maya suggested quietly, noticing the way his gaze kept drifting toward the exits. Relief flickered across his face. Yes, the terrace should be quieter. The night air was cool and crisp compared to the warmth of the ballroom. Stars glittered overhead, and the distant sound of waves breaking against the shore provided a soothing backdrop. They were alone on the terrace, the other guests still captivated by the live band inside. "Thank you," Ethan said after a moment of silence. "These events are necessary but draining." "You seemed very much in your element during your speech," Maya observed. "Years of practice." He moved to the stone balustrade, gazing out at the dark ocean. "Before the accident, I actually enjoyed these gatherings." Maya's breath caught. It was the first time he'd mentioned an accident. "What happened?" she asked softly, then immediately backtracked. "I'm sorry, that's too personal. You don't have to—" "Sailing accident," Ethan said, his voice flat. 5 years ago, a storm came up suddenly. The boom swung and knocked me overboard. I hit the water wrong, broke my back in 2 places. "I'm so sorry," Maya said, her nurse's mind immediately cataloging what such an injury would entail. "Complete T10 paraplegia," he continued, as if reading her thoughts. "No sensation or movement below the injury." Maya nodded, understanding the medical terminology. A T10 injury meant damage to the thoracic spine, resulting in paralysis of the lower limbs but full use of the arms and hands. "Is that why your former mother-in-law mentioned an anniversary memorial?" Maya asked cautiously. Ethan's gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon. "No," he said finally. "That's for something else entirely." "You don't have to tell me," Maya said gently, moving to stand beside Ethan at the balustrade. The moonlight silvered his profile, highlighting the tension in his jaw. "It's not a secret," he replied after a long pause. "Everyone in Seacliff knows the story. 5 years ago, my wife Olivia and our daughter Charlotte were driving back from San Francisco. There was a tractor trailer that jackknifed on the coastal highway. His voice faltered. They didn't survive. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Ethan, I'm so sorry." He nodded, accepting her sympathy with the resignation of someone who had heard those words countless times before. The anniversary memorial Rebecca mentioned is a charity event the Westcotts, Olivia's family, hold each year in their memory. They fund a children's hospital wing in San Francisco. "And you don't want to attend?" Ethan's gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon. "I stopped attending 2 years ago. The endless speeches about Olivia's generosity, Charlotte's potential. It felt performative, as if my grief were on display for donors to gawk at." His hands tightened on the armrests of his wheelchair. "The Westcotts never approved of me, you know. Old San Francisco money. They thought Olivia married beneath her despite my success. Hence Rebecca's reaction to meeting me," Maya said, understanding dawning. "She probably thought I wasn't up to Westcott standards either." A hint of that rare smile touched Ethan's lips. "Rebecca believes no one is good enough for her family, so don't take it personally." The smile faded. "After the accident, they made it clear they thought I had failed Olivia by not being there when she needed me." "That's unfair," Maya protested. "You couldn't have prevented the truck accident." "I could have been in the car with them. I was supposed to be. A last-minute business emergency kept me in Seacliff that day. I sent them ahead, promising to join them the next morning." His voice had grown so quiet that Maya had to lean closer to hear him. "I never got to say goodbye." The raw pain in his voice made Maya's heart ache. Acting on instinct, she placed her hand over his where it rested on the wheelchair's arm. This time, he didn't pull away. "After the funeral," Ethan continued, "I threw myself into work, expanded the foundation, started new projects, built the house on the cliff. Then the sailing accident happened, and suddenly I couldn't walk anymore either." A bitter laugh escaped him. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. "You survived," Maya said softly. "Despite everything, you're still here." "Am I?" Ethan turned to look at her directly, his blue eyes haunted in the moonlight. "Sometimes I feel like I died with them, and what's left is just existing, going through the motions." Before Maya could respond, the terrace doors opened, spilling light and music into their private moment. A group of laughing guests emerged, cocktails in hand. "Perhaps we should return inside," Ethan said, his public mask sliding back into place so quickly that Maya might have imagined its absence. "People will talk if the host is missing for too long." The remainder of the gala passed in a blur of introductions and polite conversation. Ethan maintained his composed demeanor, though Maya now recognized the subtle signs of strain around his eyes. When he finally suggested they leave shortly after midnight, she readily agreed. Ethan's driver was waiting with the Range Rover at the hotel entrance. "Could we drop Miss Jenkins at the Seacliff Hotel?" Ethan asked as the driver helped him transfer from his wheelchair to the vehicle. "Of course, sir." Once they were both settled in the spacious back seat, a barrier of silence fell between them. Maya wondered if Ethan regretted his moment of vulnerability on the terrace. She searched for something to say that wouldn't sound trivial after the weight of his revelations. "Thank you for inviting me tonight," she finally offered. "It was enlightening." Ethan glanced at her, a question in his eyes. "Enlightening?" "Seeing you in your element. The Foundation's work is impressive." She paused. "And I understand better now why you were alone in the rain that day." His gaze sharpened. "What do you mean?" "The anniversary of your loss is approaching. That's why you were out there, wasn't it? Thinking about them." Ethan looked away, but not before Maya caught the flash of pain in his eyes. "You're observant. It's part of my job." She hesitated. "In the ER, we see people on their worst days. I've learned to read between the lines." The car pulled up to the Seacliff Hotel, its lobby still brightly lit despite the late hour. "My last full day in Seacliff is tomorrow," Maya said suddenly. I fly back to Chicago the day after. Something flickered across Ethan's face. Disappointment, perhaps. I see. Did you have plans for your final day? Nothing specific. Maya surprised herself with her next words. Would you like to join me for lunch? Somewhere simple this time. My treat. Ethan studied her for a long moment as if trying to decipher her motives. Why? The directness of the question took her aback. Because I enjoy your company. Even knowing what a mess I am? His tone was light, but the question itself was heavy with meaning. Maya smiled gently. Ethan, I work in an emergency room. I specialize in messes. For a moment she thought he might decline. Then that small, transformative smile appeared. Lunch would be nice. There's a cafe in town, the Blue Door. Best sandwiches on the coast. Shall we say 1 o'clock? Maya nodded. 1 o'clock it is. The driver had already exited to retrieve her wheelchair from the trunk. Ethan reached across the space between them and briefly took her hand. Thank you, Maya, for listening, for not offering empty platitudes. The simple sincerity of his words warmed her more than she cared to admit. That's what friends do. His eyebrows rose slightly at the word friends, but he didn't comment. Good night, Maya Jenkins. Good night, Ethan Harrington. As she watched the Range Rover pull away, Maya wondered when exactly her simple act of kindness in the rain had evolved into friendship with this complex, wounded man, and whether, given her imminent departure, that friendship was wise for either of them. In her hotel room, Maya slipped out of her evening gown and hung it carefully, a memento of an unexpected night. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you again for tonight. Sleep well. E. She saved the number under Ethan Harrington and typed a quick reply. You too. See you tomorrow. As she settled into bed, Maya's mind replayed their conversation on the terrace. The pain in Ethan's voice when he spoke of his family, the way he'd said he was just existing. It sparked her nurse's instinct to heal, to help, but this wasn't a physical wound she could bandage or a condition she could treat. Lily's warning echoed in her thoughts. You have a savior complex the size of Lake Michigan. Maybe her friend was right. Maybe she was getting too invested in a man she barely knew, whose life was worlds away from her own. In 2 days, she'd be back in Chicago, and this brief connection would fade like a pleasant dream. Still, as sleep claimed her, Maya couldn't shake the image of Ethan sitting alone in the rain, or the way his rare smile transformed his entire face. Morning brought another gloriously sunny day. Maya spent it walking along the beach, collecting shells and enjoying the simple pleasure of having nowhere to be. At noon, she returned to her hotel to change for lunch, opting for a casual sundress and sandals. The Blue Door Cafe turned out to be a charming establishment with weathered blue shutters and a view of the town's small harbor. Ethan was already there when she arrived, seated at a corner table on the outdoor patio. He wore khaki shorts that revealed the sleek support braces on his legs and a navy polo shirt that made his eyes seem even bluer. Right on time, he said, looking up from a tablet he'd been working on. Punctuality is drilled into us in nursing school, Maya replied, taking the seat across from him. If you're late for your shift, someone else has to stay longer. Sounds like business, though in my case, people just rescheduled around me. Ethan set his tablet aside. I've already ordered for us, if that's all right. The special today is grilled local shrimp with avocado on sourdough and fresh lemonade. That sounds perfect. Maya settled into her chair. How's your morning been? Productive, actually. I had a video conference with our research team. They're tracking a pod of humpbacks migrating up the coast. With tags or something? Non-invasive methods. Hydrophones to track their vocalizations, drones for aerial observation. We're documenting how they navigate around shipping lanes. Ethan's expression brightened as he spoke about the work, and Maya found herself drawn in by his enthusiasm. Their sandwiches arrived, enormous creations that looked as delicious as Ethan had promised. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily between them, touching on their respective careers, favorite books, and travel experiences. "So, back to Chicago on Wednesday," Ethan said as they finished their meal. "Back to the emergency room." Maya nodded. "Back to reality." "Was Seacliff not real enough for you?" There was a teasing note in his voice she hadn't heard before. "Private yachts, charity galas, and oceanfront hotels aren't exactly my normal," she pointed out. "It's been like a dream, a really nice one, but still a dream." Ethan studied her thoughtfully. "I suppose it would seem that way." A comfortable silence fell between them as they sipped their lemonade. Then Ethan said, "I have a proposal." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" That small smile appeared. "Not at all. I was thinking, since it's your last full day in Seacliff, would you like to see the house?" "The real house. Not just from the water. We could have dinner there." The invitation caught Maya by surprise. From what she had gathered, Ethan rarely invited anyone to his cliffside home. It had sounded more like a retreat, a place of solitude. "I'd like that," she said truthfully. "Excellent. I'll send a car for you at 6. He hesitated. "Fair warning, Rebecca might be there. She sometimes drops by unannounced, especially with the memorial planning underway." "I think I can handle Rebecca," Maya said with more confidence than she felt. "I've no doubt." Ethan signaled for the check. "Now, before you protest, I know you said lunch was your treat, but I took the liberty of arranging it with the owner beforehand." Maya laughed. "You're incorrigible." "So I've been told." He handed his credit card to the waitress without looking at the bill. "Consider it my small rebellion against your insistence on maintaining financial equilibrium between us." "There can be no financial equilibrium between an emergency nurse and, well, you," Maya pointed out. "Then perhaps we should find other kinds of equilibrium." The statement hung in the air between them, laden with possibilities neither was quite ready to articulate. As they parted outside the cafe, Ethan caught her hand briefly. "Until tonight, Maya Jenkins. Until tonight." Walking back to her hotel, Maya tried to ignore the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. It was just dinner at a friend's house, she told herself. Nothing more. Yet as she scrolled through her limited vacation wardrobe, trying to decide what to wear, she couldn't deny that whatever was developing between her and Ethan felt significant and terribly ill-timed given her imminent departure. At precisely 6 o'clock, a sleek silver Tesla pulled up to the hotel entrance. The driver, a different man from the previous night, opened the door for her with practiced courtesy. "Miss Jenkins? Mr. Harrington sent me to bring you to the residence." As they wound up the coastal road, Maya watched the ocean sparkle in the early evening light. The reality of returning to Chicago in less than 48 hours pressed on her like a physical weight. For the first time, she found herself wishing her vacation could be extended, a stark contrast to her initial feeling that it might be too long. The car turned onto a private drive, passing through an unobtrusive but clearly high-tech security gate. As they rounded the final curve, the house came into full view, even more spectacular up close than it had appeared from the water. Built into the very face of the cliff, its multiple levels seemed to cascade down toward the ocean. Walls of glass reflected the golden sunset, while natural stone elements anchored the structure to its rugged setting. It was a masterpiece of modern architecture, both boldly assertive and somehow perfectly harmonious with its surroundings. The driver pulled up to a circular driveway where Ethan waited in his wheelchair, silhouetted against the dramatic backdrop of his home and the endless ocean beyond. "Welcome to Cliff Haven," he said as Maya stepped from the car. "I hope you're hungry." Cliff Haven was even more breathtaking on the inside than its exterior had suggested. Ethan led Maya through an entryway of warm wood and stone into a great room where the boundary between indoors and out seemed to dissolve. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Pacific like a living painting. while comfortable yet elegant furnishings in shades of blue and sand created an atmosphere of casual luxury. "This is incredible," Maya breathed, drawn to the windows and the panoramic view beyond. "Thank you." Ethan moved to join her. "I designed most of it myself after the accident. The original house was my grandfather's, a traditional place, lots of stairs and narrow doorways, not exactly wheelchair-friendly." Maya noticed then how the space was subtly adapted for accessibility. Wider doorways, smooth transitions between rooms, everything at the perfect height for someone seated. Yet these adaptations were so seamlessly integrated into the design that they enhanced rather than compromised the aesthetic. "You have excellent taste," she said. "I had motivation. After months in hospitals and rehabilitation centers, I wanted a home that didn't feel medical." He gestured toward the terrace. "Would you like a glass of wine? The sunset is particularly beautiful from out there." The terrace extended like the prow of a ship, offering an unobstructed view of the coastline and the ocean beyond. A fire pit surrounded by comfortable seating occupied one end, while the other held a dining table already set for two. The sound of waves against the cliff face below provided a soothing soundtrack. A woman in her 60s appeared carrying a tray with wine and appetizers. "Here you are, Mr. Harrington." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Maya, this is Eleanor Chen, who keeps Cliff Haven and me functioning. Eleanor, Maya Jenkins." The housekeeper smiled warmly. "It's a pleasure, Ms. Jenkins. Dinner will be ready in an hour, as requested." After she departed, Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine, a pale gold Chardonnay that caught the fading sunlight. "To new friendships," he said, raising his glass. "To new friendships," Maya echoed, though the word friendship felt inadequate for the connection that had formed between them in such a short time. They sipped their wine in comfortable silence, watching the sun descend toward the horizon in a blaze of orange and pink. The moment felt intimate in a way that made Maya acutely aware of how little she knew about this man, yet how drawn she was to him. "When you said you designed this place," she ventured finally, "did you mean architecturally? Are you an architect?" Ethan shook his head. "Engineer by training, MIT, then Stanford for my MBA. I started in tech, then moved into sustainable energy. The foundation came later after I sold my company." "What company?" "Harrington Tech. We developed solar panel technology." He said it casually, as if it were a small family business rather than what Maya suspected was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. "So you're not just wealthy, you're billionaire wealthy," she said, the realization confirming her earlier suspicions. Ethan looked uncomfortable. "Money is just a tool, Maya. It doesn't define who I am." "But it shapes how you experience the world," she pointed out gently. "The options you have, the doors that open for you. It also distorts how people see you." His gaze was direct. "When people look at you, they see a nurse, someone who helps, who cares. When they look at me, they see dollar signs and opportunity. Do you know how rare it is for someone to offer me coffee just because I looked cold?" The vulnerability in his question caught Maya off guard. "Is that why you invited me on the yacht? Because I didn't know who you were?" "Partly," he admitted, "but mostly because you saw me. Not the wheelchair, not the bank account, just me, sitting alone in the rain." He set down his wine glass. "It's not something I'm accustomed to." Before Maya could respond, Mrs. Chen reappeared. "Excuse me, Mr. Harrington, but Mrs. Westcott is here. She's quite insistent on seeing you." Ethan's expression tightened. "Tell her I'm having dinner with a guest, Eleanor. Ask if she can come back tomorrow." "I did, sir. She says it's urgent." "About the memorial." With a barely suppressed sigh, Ethan nodded. "Show her to my study. I'll be there momentarily." He turned to Maya. "I'm sorry about this. It shouldn't take long." "It's fine," Maya assured him. "Family obligations are important." "Former family," Ethan corrected, a note of bitterness entering his voice. "The only real connection we share now is grief, and I'm not convinced we even experience that the same way." He maneuvered his wheelchair back inside, leaving Maya alone with the spectacular sunset and her thoughts. She tried not to eavesdrop, but the acoustics of the open-plan home carried voices, and Rebecca Westcott's cultured tones were not designed for subtlety. "Really, Ethan, this memorial is the least you can do for Olivia and Charlotte's memory. The press coverage alone?" "This isn't about press coverage, Rebecca." Ethan's voice was controlled but tense. "It's about respect. I don't want their deaths used as a fundraising opportunity. The children's wing at San Francisco Memorial has saved hundreds of lives. How can you be so selfish? I donate millions to that hospital every year, anonymously. I simply don't see why my grief needs to be on public display to raise money." There was a pause. Then Rebecca's voice turned sickeningly sweet. "I met your little nurse at the gala. She seems nice. Does she know about Olivia? About what really happened?" Maya stiffened, straining to hear Ethan's response, but his voice had dropped too low. Rebecca's reply, however, carried clearly. "She deserves to know what kind of man you really are, Ethan, before she gets too involved." Unable to resist, Maya moved closer to the terrace doors. From this position, she could see part of the study where Ethan sat facing his former mother-in-law. His back was rigid, his hands gripping the arms of his wheelchair so tightly his knuckles had gone white. "That's enough, Rebecca. Maya has nothing to do with this." "Doesn't she? You've hardly looked at another woman in 5 years, and suddenly you're parading around with this nurse from nowhere?" "I'm not parading anywhere." Ethan's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. "And I'd suggest you remember that while the Westcotts may control the memorial, I control the foundation that funds most of your family's charitable endeavors." Rebecca's laugh was cold. "Are you threatening me, Ethan?" "How unbecoming." "Simply stating facts. Now, if you'll excuse me, my dinner is getting cold." "Fine, but I expect you at the planning meeting next week. Your absence has been noted, and not favorably." Maya hurried back to her original position by the railing, not wanting to be caught eavesdropping. A few moments later, she heard the click of heels on the hardwood floor and then the distant sound of a door closing. Ethan didn't immediately return. Minutes stretched, and Maya wondered if she should go find him or pretend she hadn't heard anything. Finally, she decided on honesty and went inside. She found Ethan in his study, staring out a window that faced away from the ocean, toward the darkening land. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I couldn't help overhearing some of that." He didn't turn. Rebecca has always had a gift for volume when it suits her purpose. Maya hesitated, then asked the question that Rebecca's words had planted. "What did she mean about what really happened?" Ethan's shoulders tensed, then dropped in what looked like resignation. He turned his wheelchair to face her. "You might as well know. Everyone else in Seacliff does." He gestured to a chair. "Sit, please." Maya sat, noting the elegant but clearly masculine design of the study. Leather, dark wood, and walls lined with books. No photographs, she realized. Unlike the rest of the house, there were no personal mementos visible here. "Olivia and I were having problems before the accident," Ethan began, his voice flat. "Serious ones. She had taken Charlotte to her parents' home in San Francisco while we decided things." "You were separating?" Maya asked gently. "Heading for divorce, most likely. It wasn't just one thing. My work schedule, her family's constant interference." He paused. "And I wasn't always the husband I should have been. I was building my company, focused on success. I missed important moments, took her for granted." Maya waited, sensing there was more. The day of the accident, Olivia had called to say she was bringing Charlotte home, that she wanted to try again. His voice grew strained. "I was supposed to drive up and meet them halfway, but a crisis at work kept me here. I sent them ahead, promised to make it up to them." The weight of that decision hung in the air between them. "Rebecca believes, and has made sure others believe, that if I had been there, somehow the accident wouldn't have happened. that I chose work over my family one too many times, and it cost them their lives. That's not fair, Maya said quietly. You couldn't have known. Ethan's smile was bitter. Fairness has nothing to do with it. The truth is, I do blame myself. Not for the accident itself, but for all the moments before it. The missed birthdays, the abbreviated vacations, the late nights at the office. He looked down at his legs. And then the universe decided one punishment wasn't enough. Maya rose from her chair and went to him, surprising them both by kneeling beside his wheelchair and taking his hand. Listen to me, Ethan. Accidents happen. Terrible, random, senseless accidents. As a nurse, I see them every day. You carrying this guilt won't bring them back. It only prevents you from living. Ethan stared at their joined hands. I don't know if I remember how to live, Maya. Not really. You designed this beautiful house. You run your foundation. You invited a stranger for coffee when she intruded on your solitude. She smiled gently. Those are acts of living. Something shifted in his eyes, a softening, a vulnerability he had kept carefully guarded. Slowly, hesitantly, he raised his free hand to touch her cheek. You're quite extraordinary, Maya Jenkins. The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Maya was acutely aware of the warmth of his hand against her skin, the intensity of his gaze. For a breathless instant, she thought he might kiss her. Then Mrs. Chen's voice broke the spell. Dinner is ready, Mr. Harrington. Ethan dropped his hand, the moment passing. Thank you, Eleanor. We'll be right there. Maya stood, feeling oddly unsteady. I should freshen up, she said, looking for an excuse to regain her composure. Of course, the powder room is just down the hall. In the elegant bathroom, Maya stared at her reflection. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. What are you doing? She whispered to herself. You leave tomorrow. But logic couldn't override the undeniable connection she felt to Ethan. In just 3 days, he had gone from stranger to… what? Friend seemed insufficient, yet anything more seemed impossible given the circumstances. When she returned to the dining room, Ethan had composed himself as well. Dinner was a delicious affair of locally caught seafood prepared with simple elegance. Their conversation carefully avoided both Rebecca's visit and the charged moment in the study, focusing instead on safer topics. Maya's experiences in the ER, Ethan's foundation projects, books they had both enjoyed. As the meal concluded, Ethan suggested coffee on the terrace. The night had grown cool, and he activated the fire pit with a touch on his phone. The flames cast a warm glow over the space, stars glittering above and the dark ocean stretching to the horizon. I should probably call for the car soon, Maya said reluctantly. It's getting late. Stay, Ethan said suddenly. When she looked at him in surprise, he added, There's something I'd like to show you first, if you're willing. Curious, Maya nodded. All right. He led her through the house to a wing she hadn't seen before. Unlike the main areas of Cliff Haven, this section felt less polished, more lived in. Ethan stopped before a door at the end of the hallway. I haven't shown this to anyone, he said, his voice low. Not since the accident. He opened the door to reveal what was clearly a studio space. Large windows captured the moonlight, illuminating easels, canvases, and shelves filled with art supplies. On the walls hung dozens of paintings, seascapes, landscapes, and abstracts that somehow captured the essence of sea and sky in bold, emotional strokes. These are beautiful, Maya breathed, moving closer to examine a particularly striking depiction of waves crashing against cliffs in a storm. You're an artist. I used to be, Ethan replied. Before everything. I started painting again after the sailing accident during rehabilitation. The therapist suggested it might help with dexterity and focus. And did it? His smile was sad. With dexterity, yes. Focus, not so much. But it gave me somewhere to put the feelings I couldn't express otherwise. Maya moved slowly through the space, taking in each painting. Many depicted the ocean in various moods: calm, stormy, mysterious. Others were more abstract, turbulent emotions captured in color and form. One wall held what were clearly older works, and among them portraits. A beautiful dark-haired woman with laughing eyes, a little girl with her father's blue gaze and her mother's dimpled smile. Maya stopped before them, understanding immediately who they were. "Olivia and Charlotte," she said softly. Ethan nodded, his expression a complex mixture of love and pain. "I haven't been able to paint them since. I've tried, but they're lovely, Ethan." Maya turned to face him. "Thank you for sharing this with me. I wanted you to see—" He seemed to struggle for words. "I wanted you to know that there was more to me than grief and guilt, that I was once capable of creating beauty, not just preserving it." The vulnerability in his admission touched something deep in Maya's heart. Without thinking, she moved to him and placed her hands gently on his shoulders. "You still are." Ethan looked up at her, the moonlight through the windows silvering his features. This time, there was no interruption as he reached for her, drawing her down until their lips met in a kiss that felt at once like a question and an answer. The kiss lingered, sweet and tentative at first, then deepening with a hunger that surprised them both. When they finally broke apart, Maya found herself breathless, her hands still resting on Ethan's shoulders. His eyes, usually so guarded, were alight with something she hadn't seen before. Hope, perhaps, or awakening. "I didn't plan that," he said softly, one hand still cradling her cheek. "I didn't either," Maya admitted. "But I'm not sorry it happened. Neither am I." His thumb traced the curve of her cheekbone. "Though your timing is terrible, Maya Jenkins. One more day and you're gone." The reminder of her imminent departure fell between them like a shadow. Maya straightened, putting a small distance between them as reality reasserted itself. "I know. I fly out tomorrow evening." Ethan's expression was unreadable as he lowered his hand. "And then back to Chicago, to your real life." "This feels pretty real to me," Maya said, gesturing to encompass the studio, the paintings, the moonlight streaming through the windows, and the two of them, caught in this unexpected moment. "Does it?" He moved his wheelchair slightly back, creating more space. 3 days ago, you didn't know I existed. In another 3, will this feel like more than a vacation diversion?" The question stung, though Maya recognized the fear behind it. "Is that what you think this is? A diversion?" "I think," Ethan said carefully, "that we hardly know each other. That connections formed in extraordinary circumstances don't always translate to ordinary life. That Chicago and Seacliff are separated by more than just miles." "You're pulling away," Maya observed, hurt despite understanding his caution. "Because I'm leaving." Ethan wheeled over to the window, his profile sharp against the moonlight. "I'm being realistic. You have a life in Chicago, a career, friends, a future. I have this." He gestured vaguely, indicating Cliff Haven, his foundation, the remains of a life rebuilt from tragedy. "Why can't those things intersect?" Maya asked, moving to stand beside him at the window. "Planes exist, Ethan. So do phones and video calls. Long-distance relationships are difficult enough without adding my complications to the mix. By complications, do you mean your wheelchair, or your grief, or your wealth?" Maya's voice was gentle but insistent. "Because none of those things defines who you are to me." Ethan turned to look at her, his expression pained. "You say that now, but long distance means you'd fly here or I'd fly there. You'd have to navigate my world or I'd have to navigate yours. Eventually, the reality of who I am, all of it, would matter." "It already matters," Maya countered. "It's part of what makes you the man I—" She stopped, suddenly aware of the weight of what she'd almost said. A flicker of something. Hope, fear, disbelief, crossed Ethan's face. "The man you what, Maya?" She took a deep breath. "The man I'm falling for, against all logic and reasonable timelines." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, as if her words caused him physical pain. When he opened them again, the raw vulnerability there made Maya's heart ache. "I haven't felt this way in a very long time," he admitted. "I didn't think I could, or should." "Why shouldn't you?" "Because I failed the last people who loved me." His voice was barely audible. "I don't deserve a second chance." Maya knelt beside his wheelchair, taking his hands in hers. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Ethan. Even you. Especially you." For a long moment he simply looked at her as if memorizing her face. Then he leaned forward and kissed her again, more tenderly this time. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stay tonight," he said softly. "Not for anything. Just stay. We can talk. Watch the sunrise over the ocean. Make the most of the hours we have left." Maya knew she should be sensible, should return to her hotel and pack for tomorrow's flight, should create some distance before this connection became any deeper. Instead, she heard herself say, "Yes, I'll stay." Ethan's smile, a real one, full and unguarded, transformed his face. "I'll have Eleanor prepare a guest room." They spent the next hours talking, sharing stories from their lives before they met. Ethan spoke of his childhood in Northern California, his passion for engineering that led him to MIT, his early business ventures. Maya told him about growing up in small-town Wisconsin, her decision to become a nurse after her grandmother's illness, her sometimes chaotic life in Chicago. They moved to a comfortable seating area on the main level, where floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the vast darkness of the ocean beyond, punctuated by the distant lights of ships. Ethan poured them each a glass of cognac, the amber liquid catching the glow from the fireplace. "Tell me about your work," he said, settling his wheelchair beside the sofa where Maya sat. "What made you choose emergency medicine?" "I like the immediacy of it," she replied, considering. "In the ER, everything is in the present moment. Someone comes in with a problem, sometimes a life-threatening one, and we have to solve it right then. There's no waiting, no lengthy treatment plans, just action and reaction." "And results," Ethan added. "You know immediately if you've succeeded or failed." Maya nodded. "Exactly. It's intense and exhausting, but also incredibly rewarding." She sipped her cognac. "What about you? Was business always your passion?" "Technology was my passion. Business was the means to develop it." Ethan stared into his glass. "I wanted to create solutions to real problems. My solar panel innovations made clean energy more accessible. When I sold the company, I had more money than I could spend in several lifetimes, but the real satisfaction came from knowing my work made a difference." "Is that why you started the foundation?" "Partly. Also because—" He hesitated. "Because Olivia was passionate about marine conservation. She grew up sailing these waters with her father. The foundation was originally her idea." Maya absorbed this new piece of information. "So the foundation is a tribute to her." "It began that way," Ethan acknowledged. "But it's evolved into something more. After the sailing accident, when I was struggling to find purpose again, the foundation gave me a reason to keep going. A way to channel my engineering skills into something meaningful." "It's an impressive legacy," Maya said softly. Ethan looked at her intently. "What about your legacy, Maya? What mark do you want to leave on the world?" The question caught her off guard. In the daily rush of the emergency room, she rarely thought in such broad terms. "I haven't really considered it that way. I just try to help people, one patient at a time." "But you do make a difference," Ethan pressed. "Every life you save, every person you help during their worst moment, that ripples outward in ways you might never see." Maya smiled, touched by his perspective. "I suppose you're right. I just don't think of it in those grand terms." "Perhaps that's what makes you special." Ethan said, his voice warm. "You do extraordinary things without requiring recognition for them." Their conversation continued, flowing easily from topic to topic. Maya was surprised by how comfortable she felt with him, how natural it seemed to be sharing these hours in his home. Around 2 in the morning, she found herself stifling a yawn. "You're tired," Ethan observed. "Eleanor prepared the guest room. It's down the hall from the studio." Maya hesitated, suddenly shy. "I didn't bring anything to sleep in." "There should be everything you need in the room. Eleanor is remarkably efficient." He moved his wheelchair back slightly. "I'll show you the way." The guest room was as elegantly appointed as the rest of Cliff Haven. A king-sized bed faced windows that would undoubtedly offer a spectacular ocean view in daylight. On the bed lay a silk pajama set, still with tags attached, and the bathroom was stocked with high-end toiletries. "Eleanor thinks of everything," Maya said, touched by the thoughtfulness. "She's been with me since before—" Ethan paused. "She helped redesign the house after the accident. Made sure I could live independently without sacrificing beauty or comfort. She must care about you a great deal." "She does." Ethan lingered in the doorway. "Too much sometimes. She worries." Maya moved closer to him. "About what?" "About my isolation, my refusal to engage with the world." His eyes met hers. "She'll be pleased I invited you here." "Will she?" Maya smiled. "Even though I'm just a nurse from Chicago passing through?" "Especially because of that." Ethan reached for her hand. "Good night, Maya Jenkins. Sleep well." "Good night, Ethan." She bent to kiss him softly. "I'll see you in the morning." After he left, Maya changed into the silk pajamas, which fit surprisingly well, and slipped between the luxurious sheets. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. Her mind kept returning to the kiss in the studio, to Ethan's vulnerability when he showed her his art, to the impossibility of whatever was developing between them. Tomorrow evening, she would board a plane back to Chicago, back to her cramped apartment and demanding job. Ethan would remain here in his beautiful clifftop retreat, surrounded by memories and obligations. The distance between their worlds seemed insurmountable, yet the connection between them felt undeniably real. In just a few days, this man had touched something in her heart that none of her previous relationships had reached. There was an honesty to their interactions, a mutual recognition that transcended the brevity of their acquaintance. Maya finally drifted off as the first hint of dawn lightened the sky, her dreams filled with ocean waves and Ethan's rare, transformative smile. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the tantalizing aroma of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she didn't recognize her surroundings. Then memory returned. Cliff Haven, Ethan, the kiss, their late-night conversation. After a quick shower, Maya dressed in yesterday's clothes, feeling slightly self-conscious. She found Ethan on the main terrace, already dressed in khaki pants and a light sweater, reading something on a tablet while he sipped coffee. "Good morning," she said, suddenly shy. He looked up, and the warmth in his eyes dispelled her uncertainty. "Good morning? Did you sleep well?" "Eventually." Maya settled into the chair beside him. "The view is even more stunning in daylight. One of the reasons I rebuilt here after the accident," Ethan said, setting his tablet aside. "On my worst days, this view reminds me that there's still beauty in the world." Mrs. Chen appeared with coffee and a platter of fresh fruit, pastries, and smoked salmon. "Good morning, Miss Jenkins. I hope you found everything you needed." "Everything was perfect, thank you." After the housekeeper departed, Ethan poured Maya a cup of coffee. "What time is your flight?" 7:30, she replied, the reminder like a weight settling on her chest. "I should really get back to the hotel soon to pack." Ethan nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "Of course. I can have the car brought around whenever you're ready." They ate breakfast in companionable silence, both aware of the clock ticking down on their time together. The inevitability of their parting hung between them, unaddressed but impossible to ignore. Finally, Maya set down her coffee cup. "I should go." "Yes," Ethan agreed, though his eyes said something different. "I'll call for the car." While they waited, Maya found herself memorizing the details of Cliffhaven, of Ethan seated in his wheelchair against the backdrop of his carefully constructed world. She wanted to preserve this moment, to carry it with her back to the noise and chaos of Chicago. "Will you do something for me?" Ethan asked suddenly. "Before you go?" "Of course. Come back to the studio, just for a moment." Curious, Maya followed him down the hallway to the art studio where they'd shared their first kiss. In the daylight, the room was even more impressive, with sunlight streaming through the windows and illuminating the canvases on the walls. Ethan moved to an easel that had been covered with a cloth. He removed the covering to reveal a painting, a work in progress, clearly started recently. Maya recognized the subject immediately. Herself, standing on the bow of the Sea Whisper, her face turned toward the wind, eyes closed as if drinking in the moment. "Oh," she breathed, moving closer. "Ethan, it's beautiful. I started it yesterday after our lunch, from memory." He looked up at her, vulnerability clear in his expression. "I haven't been inspired to paint something new in a long time." The implications of this simple statement, that she had somehow awakened his creative spirit after years of dormancy, moved Maya deeply. She touched the edge of the canvas gently. "May I have it, when it's finished?" "I'd planned to send it to you," Ethan said, "a remembrance of your time in Seacliff." "I won't need a painting to remember," Maya said softly, "but I would treasure it anyway." The sound of a car arriving interrupted the moment. Ethan's driver was here to take Maya back to her hotel. The time for parting had arrived, ready or not. In the entryway, Maya turned to Ethan, suddenly uncertain what to say. How did one sum up these extraordinary few days? What words could possibly bridge the distance that would soon separate them? "Thank you," she began, "for the yacht tour, for the gala, for sharing your home and your art and your story with me. Thank you for the coffee and the rain," he replied with a hint of his rare smile, "for seeing past the wheelchair and the wealth to the person underneath." Maya knelt to be at eye level with him. "What happens now, Ethan?" His eyes, those startling blue eyes that had first caught her attention on the rain-soaked boardwalk, searched hers. "I don't know," he admitted. "I only know I'm not ready to say goodbye." "I'm not ready to say goodbye either," Maya whispered, her heart beating wildly in her chest. "But I don't see how—" "Don't," Ethan interrupted, taking her hands in his. "Don't try to solve this right now, just—" He seemed to struggle for words. "Just promise you'll call when you land in Chicago, that this doesn't end the moment you leave Seacliff." Maya nodded, relieved that he wasn't simply letting her walk away. "I promise." Ethan leaned forward and kissed her once more, softly but with an intensity that left her breathless. "Go," he said, pulling back, "before I find a reason to make you miss your flight." The drive back to the Seacliff Hotel passed in a blur. Maya's mind raced with conflicting emotions. The joy of finding this unexpected connection, the practical obstacles they faced, the fear that what felt so significant in person would fade once separated by thousands of miles. In her hotel room, she methodically packed her belongings, setting aside the midnight blue gown from the gala to be carried separately. She couldn't bear to crush it into her suitcase, not when it held the memory of Ethan's eyes following her across the ballroom, of their honest conversation on the terrace. Her phone chimed with a text message. "Dinner before your flight? I could meet you at the airport." Maya smiled, typing back, "Yes, I'll be ready at 4. She had 5 hours before she needed to leave for the airport. 5 hours to mentally prepare for leaving Seacliff and this magical interlude behind. Deciding that fresh air would help clear her head, Maya headed down to the beach for one last walk along the shore. The day was perfect, sunny with a gentle breeze, the ocean a tapestry of blues stretching to the horizon. Maya removed her sandals and walked barefoot along the wet sand, letting the cold water occasionally lap at her toes. She had come to Seacliff exhausted and disconnected, seeking only rest. Instead, she had found Ethan, with his wounded heart and rare transformative smile. What did she really know about him? A successful engineer turned philanthropist, a widower still haunted by loss, a man who painted his emotions when words failed him, a person capable of both rigid self-control and surprising vulnerability. Was it enough to build something lasting? Or was she romanticizing a vacation encounter, projecting depth onto what was essentially a brief connection between two lonely people? Maya stopped walking, staring out at the endless ocean. No, she decided firmly. What she felt for Ethan was real. Unexpected and inconveniently timed, perhaps, but genuine. The question wasn't whether her feelings were real, it was whether those feelings were enough to overcome the practical challenges they faced. Long-distance relationships were difficult under the best circumstances. Add in Ethan's complicated life in Seacliff and her demanding career in Chicago, and the odds seemed stacked against them. She turned to head back to the hotel, her mind no clearer than when she'd set out. As she approached the boardwalk, a familiar figure caught her eye. Rebecca Westcott, elegant in linen pants and a silk blouse, sitting at a beachfront cafe. Their gazes met, and after a moment's hesitation, Rebecca gestured for Maya to join her. Every instinct warned Maya to politely decline, but curiosity won out. She crossed the sand to the cafe's patio. "Ms. Jenkins," Rebecca said coolly, "I thought that was you. Please, sit." Maya slid into the chair across from Ethan's former mother-in-law, acutely aware of her casual appearance, shorts, a t-shirt, and sand-covered feet, compared to Rebecca's polished perfection. "I understand you're leaving today," Rebecca continued, stirring her iced tea. "Yes, this evening." Maya wondered how Rebecca knew her schedule, then remembered the woman's seemingly endless network of connections in Seacliff. "Good." Rebecca set her spoon down with a precise clink. "That's for the best, don't you think?" Maya refused to be intimidated. "Is there something specific you wanted to discuss, Mrs. Westcott?" A flicker of respect crossed Rebecca's face at Maya's directness. "I wanted to make sure you understand the situation you've walked into. Ethan isn't… well, he hasn't been since the accident. He seems perfectly well to me. Physically, perhaps he's adapted. But emotionally?" Rebecca shook her head. "He still blames himself for Olivia and Charlotte's deaths. He's buried himself in that house, in his foundation, avoiding any real connection with people. Until you." Maya remained silent, waiting for Rebecca to reach her point. "I don't know what happened between you two," Rebecca continued, "but I can see it's significant. The way he looked at you at the gala." She broke off, composing herself. "I haven't seen that look since Olivia." "I care about him," Maya said simply. "I'm sure you do. But caring isn't enough, Ms. Jenkins. Ethan needs stability. Someone who understands his world, his obligations, the foundation, the memorial, his position in this community." Rebecca leaned forward. "You have a life in Chicago, a career. You can't just uproot everything for a man you met days ago. And Ethan won't leave Seacliff, not with Olivia and Charlotte buried here." The blunt assessment of their situation stung, partly because it echoed Maya's own doubts. "With all due respect, Mrs. Westcott, that's for Ethan and me to figure out." "Is it?" Rebecca arched a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "When you leave tonight, what then? Phone calls that grow less frequent? Weekend visits until the travel becomes exhausting? Ethan doesn't do things halfway, Ms. Jenkins. If he's letting you in, it's because he sees a future. Are you prepared to be part of that future?" To become the partner of one of California's wealthiest men? To step into Olivia's shoes? Maya flinched at the last question. I'm not trying to replace Olivia. No one could, Rebecca said, a flash of grief crossing her composed features. But that's my point. Ethan needs to move forward, yes, but with someone who can fully commit to his life here. You seem very concerned about Ethan's well-being for someone who blames him for your daughter's death, Maya observed quietly. Rebecca's expression hardened. I loved my daughter and granddaughter more than anything in this world. And yes, I blamed Ethan for not being with them that day. But time has... She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Time has given me perspective. Ethan has suffered too. I don't wish him more pain. Yet you're here trying to convince me to end whatever is beginning between us. I'm trying to prevent more heartbreak. For both of you. Rebecca gathered her purse, preparing to leave. Think about what I've said, Ms. Jenkins. Ask yourself if you're truly prepared for what a relationship with Ethan would entail. If the answer is no, the kindest thing would be a clean break. She stood, smoothing her immaculate linen pants. For what it's worth, I think you've been good for him. He hasn't painted anything new in years, but Eleanor tells me he was in his studio until dawn this morning. With that parting comment, Rebecca walked away, leaving Maya alone with her turbulent thoughts. Back in her hotel room, Maya sat on the edge of the bed, Rebecca's words echoing in her mind. Was the older woman right? Was she being naive about the challenges they would face? And how did Rebecca know about Ethan's painting? Her phone chimed with another message from Ethan. Car will pick you up at 4. Looking forward to seeing you. Maya stared at the simple text, feeling anything but simple emotions. The thought of dinner with Ethan before her flight now filled her with anxiety. What would she say to him? How could they possibly resolve in a few hours what might take months or years to figure out? A knock at her door startled her. When she opened it, she found a hotel staff member holding a large, flat package wrapped in brown paper. Delivery for Ms. Jenkins, the young man said. Puzzled, Maya accepted the package and tipped the messenger. Once alone, she carefully removed the wrapping to reveal a canvas, the painting of her on the Sea Whisper that Ethan had shown her that morning, now completed. Maya gasped softly. The finished work was even more beautiful than the glimpse she'd had in the studio. Ethan had captured not just her likeness, but something of her essence, a sense of freedom and possibility in the way she stood at the bow of the yacht, face tilted toward the sun and wind. In the lower corner, he had signed and dated it, adding a simple inscription, "For Maya," a moment of kindness that changed everything. Tears sprang to her eyes as she traced the inscription with her fingertips. Attached to the back of the canvas was a small envelope. Inside, she found a handwritten note. Maya, I spent the hours after you left finishing this. I wanted you to have it before you go, a reminder that what happened between us was real. I don't know what comes next, but I know I'm not willing to let distance be the end of our story. Whatever obstacles we face, I want to face them together. Ethan. Maya sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the painting cradled in her lap. Ethan's note had cut through her doubts like a beam of light through fog. Rebecca's warnings, her own practical concerns, they all remained valid, but suddenly they seemed like challenges to be solved rather than immovable barriers. Her phone rang, displaying Lily's name on the screen. Taking a deep breath, Maya answered. Hey, Lily? Maya, I'm just checking in before your flight. Did the weather ever improve? Maya laughed, the sound slightly hysterical even to her own ears. You could say that? Uh-oh, I know that tone. What happened? Remember that billionaire in the wheelchair I told you about? The one you met in the rain? Don't tell me. I'm falling in love with him, Lily. Saying the words aloud sent a shock through Maya's system, and I think he might feel the same way. But I'm leaving in a few hours and I don't know what to do. A long silence followed this confession. Finally, Lily said, "Holy crap, Maya. When you decide to have a vacation fling, you really go all in." "It's not a fling," Maya protested. I can't explain it. We connect on a level I've never experienced before." "Okay, setting aside the practical issues for a minute. And believe me, we will be discussing those. Are you sure about this? You've known him for what? 4 days?" 4 days, 6 hours, and about 20 minutes, Maya said, glancing at her watch. "And yes, I'm sure. Or as sure as I can be, given the circumstances. Then I guess the question is, what are you going to do about it?" Lily's voice had softened. "Long distance is hard, Maya, especially with your schedule." "I know." Maya looked down at the painting in her lap, at the woman Ethan had captured. Someone free and hopeful and brave. "But I think it's worth trying." After ending the call with Lily, Maya checked the time. 2 hours until the car would arrive to take her to her final dinner with Ethan. 2 hours to decide what she would say, what she wanted, what she was willing to risk. She carefully wrapped the painting to protect it for the flight, her mind working through scenarios and possibilities. By the time she showered and changed into a simple sundress for dinner, Maya had made her decision. When the car arrived promptly at 4, she was ready, her suitcase packed, the painting securely wrapped, and her heart more certain than it had been in years. The driver took her not to the airport as she had expected, but to a small, secluded cove north of Seacliff. There, at the end of a wooden dock, Ethan waited in his wheelchair, the setting sun gilding his profile as he gazed out at the water. As Maya approached, he turned, and the look on his face, hope mingled with fear, mirrored exactly what she felt in her own heart. "I got your painting," she said when she reached him. "It's beautiful, Ethan, thank you." "You're beautiful," he replied simply. "The painting doesn't do you justice." Maya took a deep breath. "I met Rebecca today." Ethan's expression darkened. What did she want? To warn me away from you, essentially. She pointed out all the reasons a long-distance relationship between us would be difficult. Your life here, my career in Chicago, the foundation, the memorial. Maya paused. She wasn't entirely wrong. "I see." Ethan's voice was carefully neutral, but Maya could see the hurt beginning to form in his eyes. "But she was wrong about one thing," Maya continued, moving closer to him. "She suggested I wasn't prepared to be part of your future, that I couldn't commit to your life here." Hope flickered in Ethan's gaze. "And are you? Prepared, I mean?" Maya knelt before his wheelchair, taking his hands in hers. "I don't know what our future looks like, Ethan. I can't promise there won't be challenges, but I am prepared to find out. Together. If you want that too." "I want that more than anything," Ethan replied, his voice rough with emotion. "But Maya, I need you to be sure. Your career in Chicago is important to me," she acknowledged. "But so are you. I'm not suggesting either of us completely upend our lives tomorrow, just that we give us, a real chance." Relief washed over Ethan's features. He reached out to touch her cheek, his fingers tracing a gentle path from her temple to her jaw. "I was preparing myself to let you go," he admitted, "to wish you well and cherish these few days as a beautiful memory. I didn't dare hope for more." "Is that why you brought me here instead of meeting at the airport?" Maya asked, looking around at the secluded cove with its wooden dock and the small cabin nestled among the cypress trees on shore. Ethan nodded. "I wanted our last conversation to be somewhere meaningful, not surrounded by airport announcements and hurried goodbyes." "Is this place special to you?" "It was my grandfather's fishing cabin. Before the company, before the wealth, this was where I spent my summers as a boy." His gaze drifted to the horizon, where the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. "It's where I learned to sail, to swim, to love the ocean." Maya was touched by this glimpse into his childhood. "Thank you for sharing it with me." Ethan gestured toward the cabin. I thought we might have dinner here before your flight. There's a private chef waiting. Nothing elaborate, just fresh seafood and good wine. Maya hesitated, glancing at her watch. My flight leaves in 3 hours. I know. Ethan's expression was carefully neutral. We have time for dinner, then my driver will take you directly to the airport. A small, insistent voice in the back of Maya's mind wondered if that was really what she wanted, but she pushed the thought aside and nodded. Dinner sounds perfect. The cabin's rustic exterior belied its comfortably renovated interior. Like Cliff Haven, it had been thoughtfully modified for wheelchair accessibility, though in a more understated way. A large, open room combined living and dining areas with windows that framed the spectacular ocean view. A chef was quietly preparing their meal in the small but well-equipped kitchen. Ethan poured them each a glass of white wine. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Maya echoed, though uncertainty still fluttered in her chest. How exactly would this new beginning unfold? The practical questions they'd been avoiding loomed large as the minutes ticked toward her departure. As if reading her thoughts, Ethan said, "We should talk about logistics, how we make this work." Maya nodded, relieved to address the elephant in the room. "I have some vacation days accumulated. I could come back to Seacliff in a month or so. And I can certainly come to Chicago," Ethan added. "My foundation work can be managed remotely for short periods." "We'd have phone calls, video chats," Maya continued, warming to the possibilities. "It won't be easy, but people make long-distance relationships work all the time, right?" "Right." Ethan's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "And eventually, if things progress, we'd need to consider more permanent arrangements." The implication hung between them. Eventually, one of them would need to relocate. Maya sipped her wine, unwilling to tackle that particular issue just yet. "Let's take it one step at a time," she suggested gently. Ethan nodded, though she could see the questions still lurking in his gaze. Before he could voice them, the chef announced that dinner was ready. The meal was exquisite. Grilled local fish with herbs, roasted vegetables from a nearby farm, freshly baked bread still warm from the oven. Under different circumstances, Maya would have savored every bite, but a growing disquiet made it difficult to focus on the food. She kept checking her watch, too aware of time slipping away. "You're distracted," Ethan observed after they had eaten in relative silence for several minutes. "I'm sorry," Maya sighed. "It's just, I keep thinking about getting on that plane in a few hours, flying back to Chicago, and not seeing you again for weeks. It makes this dinner feel like borrowed time." "It doesn't have to be." The simple statement hung in the air between them. Maya looked at him questioningly. "What do you mean?" Ethan set down his fork, his expression serious. "You could stay. Not permanently, just for a few more days. Get to know Seacliff better. Get to know me better." "Ethan, my flight can be changed. Flights leave every day." Maya stared at him, momentarily speechless. The suggestion was simultaneously tempting and terrifying. "My job? You said yourself you have accumulated vacation days. Surely your supervisor would understand if you extended your stay by a week." The practical part of Maya's brain listed all the reasons this was a bad idea. She had responsibilities in Chicago, patients who depended on her, colleagues who expected her back, and yet, "I'd need to call the hospital," she said slowly, "and change my flight, and get a few more days at the hotel." "Stay at Cliff Haven," Ethan suggested. "Or here, if you'd prefer more privacy. As for the hospital, use my phone. Better reception out here." Maya took the offered cell phone, her mind racing. Was she really considering this? Extending her vacation on a whim for a man she'd known less than a week? It was impulsive, irresponsible even. Yet something in her responded to the hope in Ethan's eyes. The connection between them felt worthy of exploration, of taking chances. And the truth was, she wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. not when they were just beginning to understand what they might mean to each other. She dialed her supervisor's number, her heart pounding. Dr. Harrison answered on the third ring. "Maya, is everything all right?" "Yes, I'm fine," she assured him. "I'm calling because I'd like to extend my vacation by a week if possible. I know it's last minute." "Actually, it's perfect timing," Harrison interrupted. "We just hired a new travel nurse to help with the summer surge. She's starting tomorrow. Take the extra week. God knows you've earned it." Relief washed over Maya. "Thank you, I really appreciate it. Just promise me you're actually relaxing," Harrison added, "not picking up shifts at some California hospital out of guilt." Maya laughed, looking across the table at Ethan. "I promise. I'm actually enjoying myself." After ending the call, she sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the implications of her decision. "My supervisor approved the extra week," she said finally, "but I should still call the airline and the hotel." "Already done," Ethan said quietly. Maya blinked. "What?" "While you were talking to your supervisor, I texted my assistant. Your flight has been changed to next Wednesday, and your hotel reservation extended." He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed at his presumption. "If you'd decided to leave tonight after all, we could have canceled the changes." "You were that sure I'd stay?" "Not sure at all," Ethan admitted. "Hopeful, and perhaps a bit desperate not to lose you so soon." The sincerity in his voice melted any irritation Maya might have felt at his high-handedness. "That's quite efficient of you." A hint of that rare smile appeared. "Efficiency is a habit I've never managed to break, even when romance is involved." Romance. The word hung between them, acknowledging what had been developing since that rainy afternoon on the boardwalk. Maya felt her cheeks warm. "So," Ethan continued, his voice softening, "you'll stay?" "I'll stay," she confirmed. "One more week in Seacliff." "One more week," he repeated, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I'll make sure it's worth changing your plans." The remainder of dinner passed in a haze of shared plans and relieved laughter. The weight of imminent separation lifted, leaving space for anticipation of the days ahead. By the time they finished their meal and moved to the cabin's small deck to watch the stars emerge, Maya felt as though they'd crossed some invisible threshold. "I can't believe I just did that," she said, leaning against the railing beside Ethan's wheelchair. "I never make spontaneous decisions." "No?" Ethan's eyebrow rose skeptically. "You approached a stranger in the rain out of kindness. That seems fairly spontaneous to me." "That's different. That was just offering someone coffee." "And now here we are." Ethan gestured between them. "A chain of events set in motion by that simple act." Maya considered this. "I suppose we never really know which of our choices will end up changing everything." "Some choices feel significant from the moment we make them," Ethan said quietly. "Offering me coffee in the rain might have seemed small to you, but it was the first time in years someone had seen me, truly seen me, and responded with kindness rather than pity or calculation." The vulnerability in his admission touched Maya deeply. She knelt beside his wheelchair, taking both his hands in hers. "I'm glad I made that choice." "So am I." Ethan leaned forward, closing the distance between them until their foreheads touched. "And I'm glad you chose to stay." The kiss they shared was gentle, a promise rather than a passion. When they parted, Maya felt a sense of rightness settle over her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, this decision, to stay, to explore what they might become to each other, felt utterly correct. As they prepared to leave the cabin, Maya's phone rang. It was Lily. "Hey, I was just calling to wish you a safe flight. Are you at the airport?" Maya glanced at Ethan, who was speaking quietly with his driver. "Actually, there's been a change of plans. I'm staying in Seacliff for another week." A long pause followed this announcement. "Wow," Lily said finally. "That's unexpected. Is this about the billionaire?" "His name is Ethan. Maya replied, slightly defensive. And yes, partly, but it's also about giving myself space to figure things out. I've been running on autopilot for so long, Lily. Maybe it's time I made some changes. Changes like moving to California? Lily asked bluntly. I don't know what the future holds, Maya admitted, but I do know I want to find out if there's something real here with Ethan. That's worth an extra week of vacation, isn't it? I guess so, Lily conceded. Just be careful, okay? I don't want you getting hurt. I know. I'll call you tomorrow with updates. After ending the call, Maya rejoined Ethan, who had finished his conversation with the driver. Everything all right? He asked, noting her pensive expression. Just my friend Lily checking in, Maya explained. She's a bit protective. As she should be. Ethan's gaze was understanding. This is all happening very quickly. It is, Maya agreed. But it also feels right, Ethan finished for her, despite all logic and reasonable timelines. She smiled, recognizing her own words from the night before. Exactly. The drive back to Seacliff was quiet, both of them absorbed in thoughts of the week ahead. When they reached the town, Ethan turned to Maya. Would you like me to take you to the hotel? Maya hesitated, then made another spontaneous decision. Actually, I think I'd like to stay at Cliff Haven tonight, if the offer still stands. Ethan's expression brightened. The offer definitely still stands. But what about your things at the hotel? I can pick them up tomorrow. Right now, I just want to watch the stars from your terrace and not think about packing or flights or anything beyond this evening. That, Ethan said with feeling, sounds perfect. As the car wound its way up the coastal road toward Cliff Haven, Maya felt a strange combination of exhilaration and peace. She had just upended her carefully scheduled life for a man she barely knew. By any rational standard, it was reckless. Yet looking at Ethan in the dim light of the car, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Some connections were worth taking chances for. Some people came into your life unexpectedly and changed everything. What had begun as a simple act of kindness in the rain was evolving into something profound. Maya didn't know exactly where this path would lead, but for the first time in years, she was eager to find out. The car pulled up to Cliff Haven, its glass walls glowing with warm light against the night sky. As Ethan's driver helped him into his wheelchair, Maya stood for a moment, taking in the beauty of the house and its spectacular setting. For the next week, this would be part of her world, and so would the complex, fascinating man who had created it. Ready? Ethan asked, moving to her side. Maya took a deep breath of the salt-tinged air and smiled. Ready. The next 5 days unfolded like a dream. Maya moved her belongings from the hotel to Cliff Haven, settling into the guest room that now felt familiar. She and Ethan fell into an easy rhythm together. Mornings spent over coffee on the terrace, afternoons exploring Seacliff and the surrounding coastline, evenings filled with conversation that stretched late into the night. Ethan showed her parts of his world that tourists never saw, a hidden cove accessible only by boat where sea otters played among the kelp, a private winery in the hills where the owner greeted him like family, the research vessel his foundation used to monitor marine ecosystems along the coast. Maya found herself captivated not just by these experiences, but by seeing Ethan in his element, confident and engaged, respected by everyone they encountered. The reserved man she'd met in the rain was still present, but now she understood the layers beneath his composed exterior. On their fourth evening, they attended a small dinner at the home of Dr. James Patterson, the lead marine biologist for Ethan's foundation. Unlike the formal charity gala, this gathering was casual and intimate, just 8 people seated around a farmhouse table on a deck overlooking the ocean. The conversation flowed easily between science, politics, art, and local gossip. What struck Maya most was how naturally she fit into this setting and how Ethan's colleagues accepted her presence without question. When Dr. Patterson's wife Elena mentioned an upcoming foundation fundraiser, she casually included Maya in the planning as if her presence in Ethan's life were already established. You should see the venue, Maya, Elena said, refilling their wine glasses. It's an old lighthouse that's been renovated. Ethan can show you next week when they start setting up. Actually, I'm flying back to Chicago on Wednesday, Maya replied, suddenly conscious of how temporary her situation was. A brief silence fell over the table. Dr. Patterson exchanged glances with his wife. I just assumed, Elena began, then stopped herself. I'm sorry, I didn't realize your visit was so short. Maya extended her vacation by a week, Ethan explained, his hand finding hers under the table. She's an emergency room nurse at Chicago Memorial. That's impressive, Dr. Patterson said, smoothly redirecting the conversation. My brother's an ER doctor in Boston, says he couldn't function without his nursing staff. The moment passed, but a subtle shift had occurred. The reality of Maya's impending departure, temporarily forgotten in their bubble of new romance, had reasserted itself. Later that night, as they sat on Ethan's terrace watching moonlight shimmer on the ocean, Maya found herself unable to shake the feeling of impermanence. In 3 days, she would return to Chicago, to her job, to the life she'd built there. The thought created a hollow sensation in her chest. You're quiet tonight, Ethan observed, his wheelchair positioned beside the lounge chair where Maya sat. Just thinking about Wednesday, she admitted. Ah. Ethan's expression grew serious. I've been trying not to think about it. Elena assumed I lived here, Maya said, that I was a permanent part of your life. Would that be so terrible? The question was light, but Maya heard the vulnerability beneath it. No, she answered honestly. That's what's so confusing. A week ago, the idea of leaving Chicago would have seemed impossible. Now? Ethan prompted when she didn't continue. Maya turned to face him fully. Now I'm not so sure. These days with you, they've felt more right than anything has in a long time. Ethan reached for her hand, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. I don't want to pressure you, Maya. Long distance can work, at least for a while. But eventually we'd have to decide, she said. One of us would have to relocate. Yes, Ethan acknowledged. Eventually. They let the word hang between them, heavy with implications neither was quite ready to articulate. The next morning, Maya's phone rang as she and Ethan were finishing breakfast. Dr. Harrison's name flashed on the screen. My supervisor, she explained to Ethan before answering. Hello? Maya, I'm sorry to disturb your vacation, Dr. Harrison said, his voice tight with stress. We have a situation here that I thought you should know about. Something in his tone set off warning bells. What kind of situation? The hospital board has fast-tracked the creation of a new trauma response unit. It's something we've needed for years. Dedicated staff and resources for major emergencies and disasters. That's great news, Maya said, wondering why this warranted an urgent call during her vacation. They're appointing a director for the unit, Harrison continued. Someone with experience in emergency medicine and a track record of calm leadership under pressure. Understanding dawned. And you suggested me? You're the obvious choice, Maya. You've been the backbone of our ER for years. The board agrees. They're prepared to offer you the position. Maya's mind raced. Director of a new trauma response unit would be a significant promotion. More responsibility, better pay, a chance to build something from the ground up. It was exactly the kind of opportunity she'd been working toward. When do they need an answer? She asked, aware of Ethan watching her with concern. That's the thing, Harrison said, sounding apologetic. They're meeting on Tuesday to finalize the appointment. They need your decision by Monday evening. Monday, tomorrow, just 2 days before she was scheduled to return to Chicago. I'll call you back, Maya promised, her voice surprisingly steady despite the turmoil inside her. After ending the call, she sat in silence, trying to process the implications. Bad news? Ethan asked quietly. Maya explained the situation, watching his expression shift from concern to understanding to carefully masked disappointment. "It sounds like a significant opportunity," he said when she finished. "You'd be foolish not to consider it seriously." "It is significant," Maya agreed. "It's the kind of role I've been working toward for years. But accepting it would mean committing to Chicago," Ethan finished for her, "making any potential relocation to California more complicated." "Yes." The single word felt inadequate to express the conflict raging inside her. "Ethan, I don't know what to do." He was silent for a long moment, then maneuvered his wheelchair closer to her chair. "I can't make this decision for you, Maya, and I won't pretend it doesn't affect what's developing between us. But I also won't ask you to sacrifice your career for a relationship that's just beginning." His words, though considerate, stung. "Is that all this is to you? Just beginning?" "You know it's more than that," Ethan said, his voice low and intense. "But we've known each other for less than 2 weeks. That's not long enough to make life-altering decisions, no matter how strong the connection feels." The rational part of Maya knew he was right. The emotional part, the part that had fallen in love with this complex, wounded man, rebelled against such pragmatism. "I need to think," she said, rising from her chair. "Clear my head." "Of course." Ethan didn't try to stop her. "Take all the time you need." Maya retreated to the guest room, her thoughts in chaos. The job offer had forced a decision she wasn't prepared to make: stay in Chicago and advance her career, potentially sacrificing whatever future she might have with Ethan, or turn down the opportunity and leave her options open for a relationship that, while profound, was still in its infancy. She tried to imagine her life in each scenario. Directing the new trauma response unit in Chicago, building something important, saving lives, but coming home to an empty apartment, her connection with Ethan fading into wistful memory. Or building a life in California, near the man who had awakened her heart, but potentially sacrificing the career she'd worked so hard to establish. Neither option felt right, neither felt like a true choice. After an hour of circular thinking, Maya decided she needed physical distance to clear her mind. She borrowed Ethan's car, a specially modified Tesla, and drove along the coastal highway, windows down to let the ocean breeze wash over her. Without consciously deciding, she found herself at the small cove where Ethan had taken her for dinner the night she was supposed to leave, his grandfather's fishing cabin. The place was empty now, peaceful in the afternoon sun. Maya parked and walked down to the dock, sitting at the edge with her feet dangling above the clear water. What was the right answer? In nursing school, they'd been taught to assess situations systematically, to gather data and make decisions based on facts rather than emotions. But this situation defied such clinical analysis. Her feelings for Ethan were too new to quantify, yet too significant to dismiss. The sound of tires on gravel interrupted her thoughts. Turning, Maya saw a familiar Range Rover parking beside the Tesla. Ethan's driver helped him into his wheelchair, then discreetly returned to the vehicle, leaving Ethan to navigate the smooth path to the dock alone. "I thought I might find you here," he said, stopping his wheelchair a few feet away. "You don't mind?" Maya shook her head. "How did you know I'd come here?" "Just a feeling. This place has always been where I come to think." He moved closer, positioning his wheelchair beside her. "Any clarity yet?" "Not really," Maya admitted. "Both options feel wrong somehow, like I'd be giving up something essential either way." Ethan was quiet for a moment, gazing out at the water. "When I was building my company," he said finally, "I faced a similar crossroads. I'd developed the original solar technology in my garage, but scaling it required capital I didn't have. I had 2 options: take investment from venture capitalists who wanted to control the direction of the company, or partner with a larger corporation that promised manufacturing support but wanted exclusive rights to the technology." "What did you do?" Maya asked, intrigued by this glimpse into his past. "Neither. I found a third option. I licensed the technology non-exclusively to multiple partners, retaining control while generating enough revenue to grow independently. Ethan turned to look at her directly. Sometimes the right answer isn't on the menu we're initially presented with. Maya considered this. You think there's a third option for my situation? I think, Ethan said carefully, that you're approaching this as if it's solely your decision to make, as if I have no agency in the matter. What do you mean? You're assuming I can't or won't consider relocating to Chicago, he explained. That any compromise must come from you. Maya stared at him, surprised. But your foundation is here. Your home. The foundation has offices in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Adding Chicago isn't inconceivable. Ethan's expression was earnest. As for Cliff Haven, it's a house, Maya. A beautiful one, yes, but still just a structure of wood and glass. But Olivia and Charlotte? Maya stopped, realizing the implication of what she was saying. Are buried here, Ethan finished. Yes, and for years that tethered me to this place. I convinced myself I needed to be near them. But Maya, they're not in that cemetery. They're here. He placed a hand over his heart. I carry them with me, wherever I go. The simple statement brought tears to Maya's eyes. You'd consider moving to Chicago? For me? I'd consider creating a life that allows both of us to pursue what matters, Ethan corrected gently. That might mean splitting time between Chicago and California. It might mean establishing a Chicago office for the foundation. I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to explore the questions, if you are. Maya's heart swelled with a complicated mixture of emotions: hope, fear, gratitude, love. It won't be simple, she warned. The best things rarely are. Ethan reached for her hand. The question isn't whether it will be easy. It's whether what we're building is worth the effort. And you think it is? Ethan's gaze was steady, his blue eyes clear and certain in the afternoon light. I know it is. At least for me. Maya looked out at the ocean, then back at the man beside her, the man who had gone from stranger to essential in the space of days. The decision wasn't made, the path not yet clear. But for the first time since receiving Harrison's call, she felt a sense of possibility rather than constraint. I think, she said slowly, that I need to make a phone call. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she dialed Dr. Harrison's number. Ethan had tactfully moved his wheelchair to the end of the dock, giving her privacy while remaining supportively within sight. Maya, Harrison answered. Have you made a decision? Not exactly, she replied, her voice steadier than she expected. I have some questions first. Of course. The Trauma Response Unit. Would it require full-time physical presence at Chicago Memorial, or would there be flexibility for remote work, at least part of the time? There was a pause. That's not something we've considered, Harrison admitted, but it's not unreasonable. Many administrative aspects could potentially be handled remotely, with scheduled on-site weeks for training and actual emergency responses. Why do you ask? Maya took a deep breath. I've met someone here in California. It's new but significant. I'm exploring options that might allow me to accept the position while maintaining a bi-coastal relationship. A longer silence followed. I see, Harrison said finally. That's unexpected. For me too, Maya acknowledged with a small laugh. Life has a way of surprising us. Indeed it does. Harrison's tone shifted from surprise to thoughtful. Let me discuss this with the board. A hybrid arrangement might actually work in our favor, expanding our connections with West Coast emergency services, perhaps even establishing a sister unit eventually. Hope flickered in Maya's chest. That would be ideal. I can't promise anything, Harrison cautioned, but your value to the hospital gives you leverage. Let me see what I can do and call you back. After ending the call, Maya sat for a moment, absorbing what had just happened. She had neither accepted nor declined the position, but had instead opened a door to possibility. A third option, just as Ethan had suggested. She walked down the dock to where he waited. "Harrison is going to discuss a potential hybrid arrangement with the board," she told him. "Part-time in Chicago, part-time remote." "And how do you feel about that possibility?" Ethan asked, his expression careful. Maya sat on the edge of the dock beside his wheelchair. Hopeful, scared, excited. She looked up at him. "What about you? Are you really willing to consider splitting your time between California and Chicago?" "I've been thinking about it ever since you told me about the job offer," Ethan admitted. "The foundation has needed a Midwest presence for years. Chicago would be an ideal location, a major city with access to the Great Lakes ecosystem, which faces many of the same threats as our oceans." "You've given this serious thought," Maya observed, surprised. "I have." Ethan reached for her hand. "Maya, when Olivia and Charlotte died, I thought my life was over. Then the sailing accident happened, and I was certain of it. I closed myself off, convinced I didn't deserve happiness." His voice grew softer. "Until you offered me coffee in the rain." Maya squeezed his hand, remembering that gray afternoon that now seemed so long ago. "That simple act of kindness cracked open something I thought had died," Ethan continued. "You saw me, not my wheelchair, not my wealth, just me. And in seeing you these past 2 weeks, I've rediscovered parts of myself I thought were lost forever." "Ethan, let me finish, please," he interrupted gently. "What I'm trying to say is that I love you, Maya Jenkins. I know it's soon, probably too soon by conventional standards, but there's nothing conventional about how we met or what's grown between us." The words hung in the air between them, honest and unguarded. Maya felt tears well in her eyes. "I love you too," she whispered, the truth of it resonating through her entire being. "And you're right. It's soon and unexpected and probably a little crazy, but it's real." "Then we'll find a way to make this work," Ethan said with quiet certainty. "Whether that means splitting time between Chicago and California or eventually settling in one place or the other. The details matter less than the commitment to try." Maya leaned forward to kiss him, a gentle confirmation of that commitment. When they parted, she said, "I'd like to accept the position, if the board agrees to a flexible arrangement. I've worked too hard to pass up this opportunity." "I would never ask you to," Ethan assured her. "Your career is part of who you are, part of what makes you the woman I've fallen in love with." "And what about you? Your work with the foundation, your home here?" "The foundation will benefit from expanding to the Midwest," Ethan said thoughtfully. "As for Cliff Haven, I'll always love this place, but I've held on to it partly because I was afraid to move forward. Maybe it's time to create a new home, one that reflects the future rather than memorializing the past." Maya was struck by the significance of this statement. For Ethan, Cliff Haven represented more than just an impressive residence. It was a monument to his lost family, a silent testament to his grief and guilt. His willingness to envision a different home spoke volumes about his emotional journey. "We don't have to decide everything today," she reminded him gently. "We can take it step by step." Ethan nodded, a soft smile transforming his features. Wise as always, Nurse Jenkins. The ringing of Maya's phone interrupted the moment. Harrison was calling back, far sooner than she'd expected. "I spoke with the board chairman," he said without preamble. "We're prepared to offer a hybrid arrangement. 3 weeks on site in Chicago each month, 1 week remote. During emergency deployments, you'd obviously need to be physically present, but regular administrative duties and planning could be managed flexibly." Maya's heart raced. "That sounds workable." "There's more," Harrison continued. "The chairman is interested in exploring a partnership with California Emergency Services, particularly for disaster preparedness. Your connection to the West Coast could be valuable in establishing those relationships." After ending the call, Maya turned to Ethan with a mixture of disbelief and excitement. They agreed to the hybrid arrangement. 3 weeks in Chicago, 1 week remote each month. "That's wonderful," Ethan said, genuine pleasure in his voice. "When do they need you back?" 2 weeks from now for the initial planning meetings," Maya replied. "I'll need to extend my vacation again." "I think Dr. Harrison will understand," Ethan said with a smile. "Given the circumstances." They returned to Cliff Haven as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and pink. On the terrace, Eleanor had set out a light dinner and wine, as if anticipating their return and the celebration to follow. "To new beginnings," Ethan proposed, raising his glass. "And unexpected kindness," Maya added, touching her glass to his. As they ate, they began tentatively planning the logistics of their bi-coastal relationship. Maya would need to secure her apartment in Chicago, perhaps find a larger place that could accommodate Ethan's visits and his accessibility needs. Ethan would research potential office spaces for a Chicago branch of his foundation. "I should visit Chicago before you start the new position," Ethan suggested. "See your world, meet your friends." "Lily will be skeptical at first," Maya warned. "She thinks you're too good to be true." Ethan laughed. "I'm not sure anyone has ever described me that way before. Usually it's the opposite, too damaged, too complicated." "You're both," Maya said honestly. "Complicated and good. That's what makes you real." Later, as they sat by the fire pit on the terrace watching stars emerge in the darkening sky, Maya's phone chimed with a text from Lily. "Did you make your flight? Let me know you got home safe." Maya realized with a start that in an alternate version of her life she would indeed be landing in Chicago right now, returning to her old routine, the days in Seacliff fading into memory. Instead, she was embarking on a new path, one she couldn't have imagined when she first arrived on vacation. "Change of plans," she typed back. "I'm staying in California a bit longer. And I have news. I've accepted a position as director of the new trauma response unit with a hybrid working arrangement. I'll tell you all about it tomorrow, including about Ethan, who is very real and very wonderful." After sending the text, she set her phone aside and settled more comfortably beside Ethan, who had transferred from his wheelchair to one of the lounge chairs designed to accommodate his needs. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, echoing her words from their first sunset together on the Sea Whisper. "I was thinking about paths not taken," Maya replied. "If I hadn't approached you that day on the boardwalk, if you hadn't invited me on your yacht, if I hadn't stayed that first extra week, each of those moments was a choice that led here." "I've been thinking about something similar," Ethan admitted. "About how grief and loss closed me off from the world, made me believe I didn't deserve happiness. But one small act of kindness from a stranger began to change that." "Not so small to you, apparently," Maya observed. "The smallest kindnesses can have the greatest impact," Ethan said softly. "Especially when they come without expectation or agenda, simply from seeing another person's need and responding to it." In the gentle light of the fire, Maya studied the man beside her. No longer the solitary figure she'd found in the rain, but someone emerging into a new chapter of his life, just as she was. There would be challenges ahead, practical and emotional obstacles to navigate. But in this moment, watching firelight play across Ethan's features, she felt a profound certainty that they would face those challenges together. "Rebecca called today," Ethan said after a comfortable silence. "About the memorial." Maya tensed slightly. "What did she want?" "To tell me they're changing the format this year, making it less public, more focused on actually remembering Olivia and Charlotte." He paused. "She asked if you would attend with me." Surprised, Maya turned to look at him more fully. "Rebecca did. Why?" She said, and I quote, "Anyone who can get you painting again and considering a life beyond Seacliff deserves to be included." A hint of that rare smile touched Ethan's lips. "I think that's as close to an endorsement as Rebecca Westcott is capable of giving." "I'd be honored to attend with you," Maya said, "if you're sure that's what you want." "It is." Ethan reached for her hand. "Olivia and Charlotte will always be part of who I am. Sharing that with you doesn't diminish their memory. It honors the journey that brought me here. To you." Maya leaned over to kiss him, a gesture that had already become beautifully familiar. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. "You know what this means, don't you?" "What?" "Our first official date was a funeral." Ethan's laugh, warm and unreserved, drifted up to the star-filled sky. "Well, we've never done anything conventionally. Why start now?" Maya settled back beside him, her hand still clasped in his, and gazed up at the vast canopy of stars. The future stretched before them, full of uncertainties and possibilities. Chicago and California, her career and his foundation, a relationship built on the most unexpected of beginnings, all of it both daunting and exhilarating. Yet in this moment, with the sound of waves breaking against the cliffs below and Ethan's steady presence beside her, Maya felt a profound peace. What had begun as a simple act of kindness on a rainy afternoon had evolved into something neither of them could have predicted, but both now treasured beyond measure. Sometimes, Maya reflected, the most important journeys begin with the smallest steps. A nurse stopping for a man in the rain, offering coffee and genuine concern without expectation of return. A moment of kindness that changed everything. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.